Alrighty, let's begin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters, and the possible spies from the Unit 8200. I welcome you to this lovely session. Today we'll be talking about a lot of stuff, about finding your own creative voice, about understanding what you can be capable of as a designer and as a creative professional. We'll be talking about a lot of things today. So, as per usual, remember to get your stuff ready, get yourself in the mindset. We'll have a lot of stuff to talk about today. So, yeah, get your pens and papers ready. We're going to start right away. I'll give you a buffer of a minute. You can have a minute, you get your stuff, and we can begin. Okay. 10:34, we will begin. Okay. All right. I hope you got your stuff ready because we are live. Before we begin, I would like to give a quick shout out to Ibn Tawfiq, Kayla, Yusuf, and Scarlett. Yesterday, when there was the World Cup between Argentina and Spain, most people weren't able to attend, unfortunately. And one of those were the mods because I wanted someone to record and they weren't available. So I had to reschedule it to today. And these people showed up yesterday when most people were either busy with the World Cup or just forgot about that. But hey, shout out to these guys. And I had to reschedule it for today so everybody can, get some benefit out of this and actually win with all of us today. So again, shout out to these people. And yeah, with that out of the way, let's begin. In case you probably know who I am, you already know what I do, you already know what I'm talking about most of the time. And in case you don't, let's just give you a quick introduction. My name is Yusuf Higazi. This is an image of me sniffing a pencil. I've worked with these institutions before. These are the biggest names, heavy hitters in the marketing, design stuff, architecture, and contemporary art in Egypt. I also made these poster and post designs over the past years or 2 years for Ramadan, Eid Adha, and Eid al-Fitr. I also made the Salam University logo. I also recently worked with the social media division to make a all new encompassing color palette which will be officially used on Instagram and any other social outlet for Salam and the Salam brand, which is I'm quite proud of. And we will be talking about that shortly. I also have some credentials from Mackenzie, University of London and Sydney, IBM, CalArts, HB, etc., etc. So for those of you who already attended stuff for me before, it was the Don't Be a Pixel Pusher session, which was about how we as creatives and creative professionals and designers can figure out who we are and our place in the world in the age of AI. And we learned how to make yourself different and special, despite the fact that AI pretty much democratized the field of design to a bottom level, which isn't good. Normally, when you democratize design, it's a good thing. Mostly like Canva. Canva democratized design, and it's not, tied to the industry standard stuff like Adobe products. But now with AI, literally anyone can do design stuff without even learning how to use Illustrator, without even learning how to use Canva, which is the starting point. So today, I made a session for a continuation and elaboration on the philosophy that I've handled last time, which is titled All What You Can't Be. Normally, we are told, be all you can be. But the thing is, there are a lot of generals in the market today. There are a lot of people that can do a lot of things. And when you do a lot of things at the same time, you are not known for anything. This is not just me telling you how to specialize. That is something you can figure out on your own normally. It doesn't need any direction. But what I noticed in a lot of new designers and creatives is that they lack the idea that you can become your own and find your own voice, not just creatively, but as a human being and as a person. Because we can be professionals, we can make stuff and get contracts and send the files, all of that, and get paid. Nothing, nothing out of the ordinary. But we are creative professionals, not just professionals. So what makes us creative is what exactly makes us human. And today we will figure this out together in the All What You Can't Be World Cup edition. All right. So in order to understand ourselves as creatives, we have to be able to figure out how to do that. And that is through self-expression. Now, I'm from Egypt. And for most Eastern countries and cultures, even if you're not Muslim, there is a large sense of being a collective. In America, you are the individual. America worships the idea of being the best, of standing out, of becoming the better person out of all of them, crush the competition, become the better, be over everybody else, climb the corporate ladder, which again Egypt's economy and many other economies do, but it's not mainly about professional work. It's a cultural thing. In Japan, even, which is the Far East, they have a saying that says the nail that stands out gets hammered down. If you try to be special, if you try to be different, if you try to be creative and do new things that haven't been done yet, the environment around you, your friends, family, co-workers, everyone will push you down. And that's why people like the manga and anime writers and animators, people that make manga that become very famous, the reason why they are given this level of respect and fame in Japan, more so than in the West, because they were able to break out of the mold that the society that celebrates them has set for them. It's very toxic. On one hand, it's good that you're trying to work and embrace the collective, the group, and put the group ahead of yourself. But there's always a limit where it becomes less about yourself sacrificing for the good of everybody. And it becomes about how we can push you down enough that you're not special and everyone pushes along. It's basically the Soviet style of life. And I'm not making any jabs at communism here. I don't like talking about politics in general, especially when it comes to Cold War stuff, in real life at least. But I feel that it's a big problem that you can't self-express yourself in most Muslim or most Eastern countries. Most of them in these countries and cultures associate this with ego, being arrogant, being full of yourself, right? But what we have understood from seeing the new era of creative work and branding and design and innovation we've seen in the West is that individualism and collectivism both have their own flaws, and they both are fatal and lethal to both communities and societies. But they also have good components in them, which we should all embrace and understand. One thing that is said about ego is that ego is only an illusion, but a very influential one. Letting go of the ego illusion is the first step to discovering your true nature. Or you know how people tell you to be true to yourself? This is where it comes from. Now, the guy who said this was Carl Jung. Whether you like Carl Jung or not, this guy was big in both philosophy and psychology. He was the guy that literally talked about the idea of a persona. And I'm not talking about the persona games. I'm talking about persona, the idea that you have multiple masks and multiple personalities that you project around people you live with, people at work. So basically, what he's saying is everyone you meet in your life sees a different version of you, basically. So we can define ego as many different things, whether it can be hubris, vanity, conceit, and the most used word, in at least in our Islamic context, is arrogance. One quote I'd like to show you is arrogance is to reject the truth and to look down on people. If you were confused by Carl's work and by Carl's words and how he talked about ego, this should simplify it. Arrogance is to reject the truth. And that's what I said earlier about being true to yourself, about knowing who you are deeply as a human being, and to look down on people. Because here's the deal. When someone says that they are better than you and they treat you badly or harshly or just that you're lower than them, let's be honest, it says more about them more than it says about you. Because we're all humans in the end of the day. No matter how rich, beautiful, powerful, influential you are, the end of the day, the king and the pawn will enter in the same box. And this is a chess saying, but yeah, in the end of the day, both of us will be in the dirt. No one can live forever unless you're part of the Illuminati. But that doesn't go for everybody. That's like a select few. Okay. So this quote, if it sounds familiar to you, is because it is. It's from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. It's from Sahih Muslim, Hadith 91. This is the last part of the Hadith where, the Hadith where Prophet Muhammad says that a person with a single mustard grain of arrogance in their heart will not enter paradise. Then a companion asked him, well, O Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what if one of us likes to dress nicely, to look good? I'm obviously paraphrasing here. He said, just to give you the definitive answer to this, so people could know what is and what isn't arrogance. Arrogance is to reject the truth and to look down on people. So this settles it. You can be special, you can be creative, you can be different, as long as it doesn't anger God, doesn't break Allah's word and doesn't anger him, and it doesn't hurt other people. It's that simple, right? So this is the first stigma we have to break. So now we know what ego is and what ego isn't. And what ego is basically rejecting the truth, not being true to yourself, not knowing who you are, and basically hating other people for it. So by reason and default, ego is bad. So we need to be able to cut it out of our lives. Now, how do we do that? Through self-expression. We can't express yourself without knowing yourself. And that is what we call self-awareness. Self-awareness can be achieved through a lot of things. I like to present myself as someone who's self-aware. I know my cons and my pros. I know what people might see as a red flag in me and what people might see as a green flag. And obviously that's highly subjective, but I'm just talking from the moral neutral standpoint here. So I like to see that I'm self-aware, but is it really because I'm self-aware or is it because I think I am? So the best way you can figure this out is simply by doing the following. Self-awareness can be achieved through multiple simple steps that I've looked into, I've researched, I've done my work. So I've figured out 4 simple steps for this. When you see something you like or hate, when you see something that you fear or welcome, if you see something that makes you feel happy or sad, labeling these emotions and understanding exactly what you feel is the first step, because most of the time we feel a lot of emotions. When God graced us with intelligence, separated us from animals, it also gave us something that we might not be able to understand, which is conflicting emotions. We can have many different emotions. We can have many different interpretations of things, and we can feel a lot of different things at the same time, which will limit our understanding of the situation and therefore ourselves. So you need to pause whenever you feel something or understand something and tell yourself, what am I feeling and why am I feeling this? So that's the first step. The second step is to ask yourself why. Why am I feeling these things? Why am I thinking of that and seeing that? Why am I having this certain emotion because of that certain thing or that certain trigger? Why does trigger me in the first place? The third step is identify your values. After you've realized why am I feeling this, after you've identified the emotions, why do you feel these emotions? You'll be able to understand your values, right? And I'll give you an example real quick so you can understand. It's a bit simple, but it's a good starting point. You need to identify your values. What do you see as sacred that you can never break? Do you have any values at all? I'm not insulting you guys. I'm just saying in a pure, honest sense. Do you have any values whatsoever? Do you have anything that is too holy to make fun of or to talk about? I personally, I like to cope with my life and the things that I go through with humor. I like to laugh at things, but there are certain things that I can never laugh at, like my family, like Islam. When I face tragedy in my faith, or I face doubts, or I face a lot of problems that I have with my family or siblings or my parents, when relationships have like some down goes downhill with one of our relatives, I can't make a joke of that because these are things that I deeply value. I'm not trying to say this to make myself look better to you guys. I'm just being honest. Some people don't care about family because maybe they've never understood what family is. Maybe they don't really care about making fun of religion because they're atheists, or they simply are not practicing the faith they believe in, or they've just simply went to church or the mosque because it's what people do, right? So pause and understand your emotions, label them. Ask yourself, why do you feel these emotions? Identify your values based on these emotions. And finally, journal yourself. Now, at this point, you might be saying, all right, Joe, listen, you went from creative professionalism into just human resource talk, okay? You're basically making me regret being here. I understand and I hear you. Just hear me out. I hate nothing more than human resource stuff. Okay? I hate this with all my heart. Every fabric of my being, I hate it. That's why I'm giving you the cream of the crop, basically, the best possible things to do to be able to understand yourself as a human being. And when you do that, you'll be able to understand yourself as a creative. So please bear with me. Journaling yourself. You need to face yourself with your emotions. Journaling yourself. You can type it down, right? You can write down how to make one. Yeah, you can write down in your notes, right? You can use your note app. You can have a small notebook, which I highly encourage because in the end of the day, writing actually have been figured out by scientists to improve connections in the brain more than just typing on a seamless, smooth screen, right? So I highly suggest you journal it yourself. Write what you feel, write what you cherish, write the things that you feel thankful for. I know this sounds really, really soft HR stuff, but just bear with me, okay? I know what I'm doing here. Journal the things that you feel, that you hate, that you loathe, that you love. And once you realize all of these things and the emotions that react to them, you'll figure out who you are, and that is the starting point. Let's give you an example. For instance, the Palestinian cause in Gaza, the genocide that's been going on for a while. Now, you might be saying, why are you bringing this up? Bear with me. This is the best example. Now, why am I, as Yusuf, care for the Palestinian cause? I could simply say I'm indifferent, or that there are tragedies on both sides, quote unquote, right? I can say that. And I can say, well, I don't know. Maybe I can try to be politically correct and be safe from judgment from either side. But I have took a side for a reason or multiple reasons. At first, I thought, oh yeah, obviously, I grew up as an Egyptian, loving Palestine, loving Gaza. Basically, I see the Palestinian flag as my second flag after the Egyptian flag. Why? Because I was raised that way. And millions of other Egyptians are raised that way, no matter how religious they are. Whether they're secular or religious, we are all in Egypt raised, for the most part, on loving Palestine and supporting the Palestinian cause. That is how we brought up. But then I realized, okay, why do I love or support these people? I need to figure this out. And that's how I applied what I was telling you guys. When I think of Palestine, I think happiness because I remember that I have brothers and sisters on the other side of that border. But then I feel grief and sorrow for the genocide that's been going on with them. I think of Al Masjid al Aqsa and how it was occupied by the Zionists. I think of dreaming to pray there one day, or I think of walking in the gardens of Jenin one day. And when I feel happy for thinking of what I would do in Jenin and walk just in the gardens and olive trees and all that stuff, I feel sad because I don't see that in the foreseeable future, right? So why do I feel these emotions? We can start from the most obvious, which is I'm Muslim. And the mosque, Al-Aqsa, is the first qibla for Muslims ever. That is like the most basic reason. It's Al-Aqsa, the Al-Aqsa mosque, not the Golden Dome. That is a completely different mosque. This is the one that they're targeting, just so you know. Or I can go more broadly. I'm Egyptian. I've been raised, as I said, I've been raised my entire life to love Palestine and support the Palestinian cause. Not just that, but we share hundreds of years of cultural, lingual, and theological connections. We're pretty much the same people, just with a bit of a different Arabic dialect and some different foods and weddings. But that's pretty much it, right? That could also be it. Or that I'm an Arab. Pan-Arabism. I'm an Arab. I could be a pan-Arabist, Arab nationalist, that I want to unite all of Arabia against foreign invaders because Israel is a Zionist satellite state for the United States government. Or I can simply say that I'm a human being that recognizes the sanctity of human life, and that suffering inflicted on innocent people, no matter who they are, no matter what group they're in, is wrong and it shouldn't be done. Right? See what I did there? Between the cause itself, the image of the young man with the flag, and the human image, the Vitruvian man, the image, between these two, there are three main reasons: my religion, my upbringing as an Egyptian, and me being an Arab. Right? Anybody can replace any of these three, or maybe people can add more reasons. For instance, people can replace the Al-Aqsa Mosque image with the image of Jesus Christ, because again, Jesus was born in Bethlehem, in Palestine. Or we can replace the image of the Sphinx with, Nelson Mandela or the flag of Ireland, because again, if you guys remember, a few years ago, like a few decades, South Africa was an apartheid state at some point, or Ireland. The Irish people were oppressed and invaded by the British government, not just in ancient times, but later on when there were wars between the two. You can look up the Troubles. It's called the Troubles. Just look them up. It's a bloody time of Irish modern history. Just look it up. Or people can replace the Pan-Arabism flag with someone they loved from Palestine, someone they know. I know people, activists online, that were deeply hurt and deeply supportive of Palestine because they had friends, Palestinian friends, whose families died in Palestine, and that's why they care for the Palestinians. Empathy. You can replace any of these things, but the one thing you can replace is being human. That's the one thing you can replace. Unless you're an alien or a reptilian person, you're a human. You feel for your fellow humans, and that's what makes you a creative person, being human. So far, we've untackled the myth of ego and self-expression. We've tackled how to be able to express yourself as a person and find yourself first. That is the first step of self-expression and self-awareness. And then identifying your values based on your emotions and your reactions to certain triggers, right? So now let's go to a bit of a different direction than you guys would expect. I imagine you guys know who that is. Theodore Seuss Geisel, better known as Dr. Seuss. Now, you might be saying, Joe, Dr. Seuss, like the Lorax Dr. Seuss, the Cat in the Hat Dr. Seuss? Yes, that's him. Yes, that's him. Just bear with me. Why am I talking about this guy when we're talking about creative work? Just bear with me. This guy revolutionized what it means to tell a story to children. And I'll tell you exactly how he did it. Not just because he was one of the earliest people who did it. There were people before him who wrote stories for children. But what made him so special? That's exactly what we were tackling. As I previously said, the most famous story that he has ever written so far is The Cat in the Hat. Why? Aside from the fact that it's his most iconic work, it was made out of constraint. You see, in the 1950s, his publisher came to him and said, all right, Seuss, listen up, bro. We have a lot of books in the market. A lot of these books, children don't like to read. They have a lot of complicated prose. They can't understand anything, and they end up breaking stuff for their families. We need to use that pain point to make money, okay? So what we're going to do is that I want you to write a story using only 348 basic vocabulary words. Do not leave them. So, and then he said, well, Seuss was like, okay, listen, dude, I gotta pay the bills. I gotta pay my taxes. I gotta get some stuff to eat. So you know what? I get it. I'll do it. And then he sat down, and you have to understand, you might be saying, well, 348 words, that's a lot to play with, right? That's a lot to play with. And besides, it's a kid's story. These kids don't understand most of the time, and their parents will be reading for them. They'll just be looking at pictures, right? So it's not much. No. as someone who has been tackling creative writing, I've been writing short stories recently so I can understand where Dr. Seuss is coming from. It is very difficult to write with any form of constraint, whether it's a word limit, whether it's a page limit, whether it's a amount of words you have to use only and never use anything else. Because keep in mind, when words are repeated, they get boring. And kids from the 1950s in the 2020s, they have a terrible attention span. Okay, so how did Dr. Seuss do this? He started working as normal. He kept working on the book. He sketched the illustrations, and then later his publisher said, "You know what, Seuss? I'm in a bad mood. My wife had an argument with me, and I'm not happy about it. You know what? Forget the 300. Make the story with only 250 words, unique words. Don't use anything else." And Seuss went, "Okay, bet." And he made the story in that new limit. And later on, it sold over 60 million copies worldwide and became his most iconic work ever. You know how many words he used? 235 words. It's not even touching the limit of the words that he was supposed to be using. And it got so successful that he ended up making a sequel. The Cat in the Hat comes back now. And it even is getting an animated movie later this year, November 6th. Now, please tell me this. Why would a story written in the 50s get adapted in the big year of 2026? Why? You could say, well, big studios are getting creatively bankrupt, which is true. They ran out of stuff to make live movies out of, right? But you might be saying that could make sense. But again, almost all of his famous books got turned into movies. My first interaction with the Dr. Seuss canon, if you can call it that, was from one of these 3D animated movies. And I'll talk about it in a second. Excellent question, Mu'taz, and I'll answer that right away. After the success of Dr. Seuss's The Cat in the Hat, the publisher, Bennett Cerf, he came to him and said, "Listen, man, you did really well. I want you to make a story, a new one, with also a word limit. You know what? You made us a lot of money, but I gotta make sure you're not a one-trick pony, Seuss. Come on, man. You've only been drawing racist World War II comics for a living, dude. You gotta show me you can do more than that, dog." And then he said, "Okay, bet." And he went ahead and did it. How many green eggs and ham? Now that might sound like something you get for breakfast in Birmingham, Britain. No disrespect to anyone who lives in Birmingham, obviously, but just bear with me. What he did, he sold it, and how many it was sold? It was sold 8 to 10 million copies worldwide. How many words? Do you guys remember when I said that there was a word limit? What was the word limit? Only 50 new words. Only 50 vocabulary words. He was only allowed to use 50 words. And it got so famous and so well sold that it got a Netflix adaptation in 2022. Now, you might be saying, "Okay, man, listen, you've been talking about this Seuss guy, this Sus guy a lot. You got to tell us, what are you getting at?" And I'll tell you right away. You see, Dr. Seuss grew up in Springfield, USA, and his dad used to work as a superintendent at the zoo that was a few blocks away from his home, the Forest Park Zoo. Uh, you see where I'm going with this. He would take his son to work with him. Not work, just like he would just say, "All right, son, just stay there and don't move, don't do anything." And baby Seuss would just say, "Okay." And he would have a sketchbook with him and a pen or a pencil. And he would sketch the animals doing animal stuff, eating, pickering, climbing trees, hitting trees, falling off of trees, falling on other animals from the trees. He would just sketch animals and he would draw the cartoons of them. And he From a young age, he realized just how alive these animals are and how they have souls within them and how they matter. And that gave him the initial spark of empathy that would later drive his work. For instance, his later works like Horton Hears a Who, The Lorax, and The Grinch, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. You probably know The Grinch from the memes from the movie that was made a few years ago, the live action one. You probably know Horton Hears a Who and the Lorax from the I'm the Lorax and I Speak for the Trees meme, the one with Taylor Swift. Now, my first interaction with the Seuss world was Horton Hears a Who when they made a 3D movie, and it was so good. I mean, I can't recommend it enough. But the story goes as well as this: as you all know, elephants have giant ears. So basically, he said, "Oh, elephants have giant ears. They have really good hearing." So one day, this guy Horton, the elephant, was passing by, and he heard the sound of someone coming from a very small flower, and he was like listening to it, and he started speaking to it. And inside that flower, there were people. All right, Lemon, have a good day, brother. And inside there were people, small people, and it was basically like a town, a city. And the mayor was the only person who could hear Horton, and Horton was the only person who can hear him back. And they started talking. The mayor's family thought he was crazy. Uh, Horton's friends thought he was crazy, but the kids of the animals that were with him, they loved Horton, and they started talking to the flower too. That's when the kangaroo mom comes in and said, "No, that can't be. That can't happen. My son will not be talking to a flower." Yes, and he's insane. He's insane. He's ruining the youth. And she took the flower from him, and she was going to throw it into the fire. And that's when everyone in the flower believed the mayor and told him, "No, no, we need to make script." Yes, that's the movie. Yeah. So yeah, then he started making noises. They started hitting Tupperware, hitting utensils and Tupperware together, like saying, we are here." And in the end, in the last moment, they heard him. They heard them, and they didn't burn the flower. Now, where does the story come from? After the end of World War II, after the Americans dropped two nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and they bombarded Tokyo to the ground. Uh, Dr. Seuss went to Japan to record what's going on and report it to the press. And he saw the devastation of the war. He saw children scorched and turned into coal on the ground. He saw, because you really don't want to, it will ruin the magic of the Dr. Seuss lore. Just bear with me. He saw the children dying, sick, or charred in the ground like coal. He saw people waiting in line for just a clean source of water, long lines. And that's when it hit him. Like, oh my God, what have we done? All this time I have been making comics to dehumanize the Japanese and make them seem like barbarians that don't understand empathy and are not civilized, for the people to have less guilt about killing them. And now they're all dead, and most of them were children and women. They didn't do anything. They were innocent. And they were smaller, they were weaker. Japan wasn't like what we see today. They were very poor people. They had good military, but they were really poor. And he realized, oh my God, what have we done? And he went back home and he made a story about protecting the smaller, weaker people. That if someone is different and if someone is weaker than you shouldn't press them down, you shouldn't burn them, you shouldn't step on them. You should honor them, you should love them, you should be careful and delicate with them. Give them space. And that is exactly what Horton Hears a Who is about. Next, the Lorax. After Dr. Seuss left his hometown of Springfield, which sounds like a really cool name because it's actually the name of a rifle, but anyway, he left Springfield and lived in California, and he witnessed the urban expansion in the United States in the 50s and the 60s later on. He realized, wait a minute, what is happening? Guys, people are just cutting down trees and burning foliage and building in this place factories and buildings for people to live in. You might sound like it's good, but he felt deeply disturbed by it. He realized that no, that can't be done. Animals live in these places. Trees are important too. And that's because he learned empathy to animals and trees ever since when he was a child in the zoo with his dad. He learned empathy to the fellow living being with it, to you, whether it's an animal or otherwise. Being different doesn't change the fact that it's alive. So he understood that no, that can't be happening. I should make a story for the kids of the future to learn about how to appreciate life, appreciate nature, and realize that it's as important to us as it is to the animals. Then the story, The Grinch Stole Christmas. This was actually inspired by Seuss himself. When he got older and he was brushing his teeth in the mirror, no, he didn't see yellow teeth, so he decided to make the story about the Grinch. He saw his expression. He was sad, he was depressed, and it was Christmas time, and he was like, "Why am I like this? I'm a white American man from the West. I should be happy that Christmas is around. Why am I not happy?" And that's when it hit him. He didn't just name the fact that he's sad. Most of us look in the mirror and feel depressed and sad and want to break the mirror, but then realize that replacing it is very expensive, and also we don't want to cut our hands, so we don't break it, and then we break into crying in the shower. You know how it is. But he didn't do anything. He didn't deny his emotions. He didn't say, "I'm a man. I shouldn't cry. I shouldn't understand what I feel." He said, "Okay, why am I feeling sad? It's Christmas. I should be happy. Everyone is happy. Why am I not happy?" And he analyzed his emotions. Remember what we said earlier about identifying your emotions? He said, "Okay, I'm sad because it's Christmas, but why am I sad? That's not who I am as a person. I'm happy because it's Christmas, but I'm sad. Okay, what is hurting Christmas to me? The genuine love and warmth that people exchange with each other. Children playing around at night, waiting for the presents under the tree. Families traveling from across the country into a state to have a dinner together, right? That's what he sees as good. That's why he sees Christmas as a magical time, even though it's originated from a pagan, hedonistic holiday. But let's not talk about that right now. And he said, "That's not right. That's not supposed to be it. I'm supposed to be happy." And that's what he got the idea for the Grinch. The Grinch is ruining Christmas by stealing gifts and ruining for people because it has been commercialized. Originally, it was about sharing the few things you have to make people feel happy. The warmth of being close to each other is what made Christmas so special and magical to him. But now everybody's just buying presents, and companies are selling stuff very, very expensive in the Christmas season. And that's what he realized, that Christmas has been turned into a commercial season for monetary value. So he made a story about an anti-hero, which he normally doesn't do. He normally writes a story where the moral, good character is the main protagonist. And in the case of the Lorax, it's the Onceler, the evil capitalist, corporate greedy person that wants to turn the forest into his own buildings and make factories and buildings, just like the Americans used to do back in the day, right? But this time he started from the villain of the story, and over time he realized that no, that why am I doing this? I used to love Christmas, and that's where the idea of the Grinch came in. That's why people say, "Don't be such a Grinch. Don't make a Grinch face. Don't be sad. Don't frown." Right? So that's where it came from. So that's why all these stories are magical, because they teach us that Seuss internalized his humanity, and that's why, Montez, when you were asking about why these stories are adapted in the modern era today, is because these stories are heavily human. They're creative, they're simple, they have rhyming words. Why do you think they have rhyming words? It's because he was inspired by his mother. Back when he was a baby, when he was a kid, his mother would sing to him lullabies to help him sleep. And he realized, wait a minute, my mom's songs brought me comfort as a child and made me don't not fear the dark. It probably will help making children internalize the messages I'm trying to give them. So he started making the writing have rhythm, have ending rhyming words. And even in the adapted movies, if you see Horton Hears a Who, there's always a voiceover with someone reading the rhyming words, because it is so indispensable from the writing style and the storytelling style of Dr. Seuss that they had to include it in. You see what I'm going with this? So now we understand why humanity is so important to us as creatives. And that's why Dr. Seuss is seen as a revolutionary, this revolutionary genius in storytelling for children, because he realized how to make this cocktail of empathy, love, understanding, devotion, warmth, realizing that if someone is different or smaller than you shouldn't hurt them. You shouldn't press them down. You should hoist them up and help them to become better and live safer. Or how you should have more empathy for the trees and animals and people around you, because something else that is living and breathing is as important to you as everybody else, and we should be more understanding of nature. Or how Christmas or any holiday season shouldn't be turned into a season for money and soulless cash grab. We should celebrate it for what it is, a holy season for people to love, cherish each other's memories, and be together as a family. That is what made all of these stories tick with people so hard, because they deeply touch on a very internal human desire for connection, empathy, and love. It's really funny that the fact that we have Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who had the first ever caller to prayer be a black slave who was freed later. And it took 2 nuclear bombs for the white Western guy to realize that maybe hurting someone who looks different than me is actually bad. Just like take that in. Anyway, and then they call us the uncivilized. Alhamdulillah, I thank Allah for the gift of Islam, bro. For real. Like an illiterate guy in the middle of nowhere Arabia figured out what you had to go through 3 wars to get to. Alhamdulillah ala ni'mat al-Islam, bro. Honestly. Anyway, this is Austin Kleon. This guy is a story on its own. This guy is an artist, an author, and he was born in a town called Circleville, Ohio. Imagine being born in a place called Circleville. Like that's some like that feels like a lazy town name. Just not gonna lie, dude. Circleville. All right. He made a lot of books about creative work in general, like Still Like an Artist, Show Your Work, Keep Going, Don't Call It Art. I started with Still Like an Artist. It's one of the best books that I've ever read to this day. And I don't say this lightly. I read a lot. Or just listen to audiobooks if you think I'm a fraud. But it's genuinely good. 2 years ago, I was in a book fair with my family, and I found that book. It's on the screen, my dude. Montez, it's on the screen. Still Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. And it's super good. I found it. It was like a square book. Normally, most of it is just like an A4 vertical size, but it's a square book. And it had a lot of illustrations in it. Like the illustration is essential to the learning process. And that's why I think that anybody who gets the audiobook without seeing the book itself loses a lot of the effect, because it's genuinely a visual masterpiece. So if you can get the book online, find it as a PDF, download it, buy it. I don't care, but just you have to get the visual part and get the audiobook. It really helps you understand. But anyway, so yeah, these books are really good. And one of the quotes from the Still Like an Artist book was, start copying what you love. At the end of the copy, you will find yourself. Most of us are afraid of trying to start out from the zero, from point zero, from under the ground, because we fear judgment. We fear that we'd be called frauds. We fear that we'd be seen as imposters and would be taking from other people's success. But you have to understand that all of us are standing on the shoulders of giants. And the people you admire in the creative work, whether it's Paul Rand, Saul Paz, Paul Asher, Zach Meister, all of these people stood on the shoulders of other giants, and these giants stood on the shoulders of other giants. You get what I'm talking about? Nobody started making their own stuff until they were inspired by something else. And if you track back the line of creativity along humanity, you'll find that we took our inspiration from what's around us, from God's creation, from the birds, from the trees, from the mountains. We started making stories and tales. We started making folk tales and legends that later became iconic masterpieces of writing, like the Epic of Gilgamesh. These are directly inspired by the events of the flood, Prophet Noah's flood. You can look it up. Obviously, we all know that Prophet Noah and the story of the flood happened in ancient times, way before the Sumerians came in and Gilgamesh was written. So the Epic of Gilgamesh was heavily inspired by tales, inspired by tales, inspired by tales of the original event of the boats. People started changing names. They started making up gods to put in place of the actual god. Originally, the story is about how Allah was wanted to uh, basically make sure that Noah and his believers were safe from the punishment. But then they made other legends where there were two gods fighting, and one of God hated humanity and how loud it was in making noise, and he wanted to shut them down with water. It's very complicated, but they changed narrations, they changed motivations, they changed names, but the events are pretty much the same. So I highly suggest you research into the Epic of Gilgamesh because it's really interesting and gives you an idea of the what I'm talking about. Creative tailing, and that's what anthropology is all about. Basically, tailing and finding the clues of what we now know as our modern customs. So, after that, this guy, Austin, started making something way different. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I want you guys to know. What are these? These are basically newspapers. He cut out pieces of newspapers and got markers and started blocking out everything and basically turning it from a newspaper into an Epstein document. But instead of something that's incriminating Trump for the 57,000th time, he basically blocked out individual, basically kept individual letters to make poems. So if you read these pages, like there's nothing like that first book you put your guts into and hope. These sound like poetry. Or maybe this, how it works, I will give you whatever you want for all the cartwheels you're doing for me. Or in Texas, there's nothing but Texas. These don't make any sense on their own. If you see the full article, you wouldn't imagine that there could be poetry coming from these. But he isolated the words that he thought would make rhythm and make meaning and took everything else. And that idea turned into a book, and he actually sold copies of that. So what's stopping you from living your best life? The guy literally took the newspapers that you read at the barber shop with your dad, and he turned them into books and sold them for money. I don't know what you're doing here, bro. Like if he can do it, you sure with like a couple of markers and a newspaper and some scissors, you can do more than that, dude. You can do way more than that, bro. He actually sold them. You can look them up. And people bought that. People genuinely bought that stuff and saw that as a piece of art. So now that we are well motivated, exercise time. Get your pencils, your pens, your papers, your papyruses, your tree leaves, whatever you have to write down. We gotta do some exercises, bruh. We gotta do some exercises. It's time for some exercise. Get your stuff ready. Get ready to sweat a little bit. It's very humid here in Egypt, and I'm sweating like a cornered animal. But hey, it is what it is. We gotta do it for the good of the people. He took the quote you mentioned. Literally, he started copying what he loved, and at the end, yes, he found himself, bruh. He found himself. He's a guy that loves America. Okay, he loves America, and he loves anywhere but Circleville. Honestly, I'm sorry, dude, but if you're born in a place called Circleville, I would be embarrassed. I would be embarrassed, honestly. Circleville. Who lives in Circleville? Come live in Lazy Town. Come live in Lazy Town, bro. Oh my god, bro. It's like saying anywhere, any town, USA. It's called any town. My friends think I'm living in a place called Mail. I don't know if that friend is a feminist, but that might make sense. Oh, the males are so dominant, they name places after themselves. Mali. Oh, okay, Malay. I don't know how to pronounce that, bro. I'm sorry. I probably butchered it. Yeah, just wait. Okay, everybody got their pencils, got their pens, papers, papyruses, tree leaves, animal skins. Okay, let's begin. Scroll your camera roll or saved posts. Go on Pinterest, go on your Instagram, right? Go on your photos. That's stuff you take photos of. Now, I'm a huge creep who likes to take photos of random buildings while I'm walking in the street. I like to take photos of like dark night, like very dark nights with only a light bulb in the middle. I like to take photos of like a cat or a dog sleeping. I'm just a really weird guy and just have my phone up whenever I see something that might, even though I don't make any posters with it, I just feel like that is aesthetically pleasing that I have to have it with me. So we're gonna scroll through your camera rolls, your save posts, whether it's, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. I'm not abstract. I mean, I did abstract art before, but I'm mostly like a normal graphic designer guy that likes art. That's it. At first I thought I was being an imposter because, oh, you can't be an artist, you can't be a true fine artist, you do branding for big corporations and companies, bro, you can't be an artist. I said, bro, shut up. Being an artist and being a designer is one and the same. So yeah, use Pinterest, use whatever, just tell me whatever. So then find three things. You didn't try to collect it all, but you did anyways, like I did. Then type one word or phrase for each of these things. Just take a few moments and figure them out yourself. Can I even use my own app list? If you have an app that has list in it, what hold on, back up. Montez, what do you mean, bro? Tell me. So yeah, just look at your stuff. I was getting something. Just get your stuff. And before you do, it's about to abstract. I'm going to use my. Okay, fine. Use your photos. That's also all right. I just want this for you guys to understand. If you see each other doing this stuff, you'll be able to understand. Oh, so that's how I can do that. So yeah, I'll give you 2 minutes to figure it out. Don't write it right away. Just sit with it for a few moments. Pin down a few photos that you really think about. It was like, yeah, this is aesthetically pleasing to me. And then just like a word, a phrase, it's like, okay, I like this. Like understand what makes it so aesthetically pleasing and write it in the chat. So write the name of the app and then write what you think is making this aesthetically pleasing to you. Just take a moment to think. Don't do it right away. It's not a competition. I'm gonna drink some water, bro. Alhamdulillah. And I give another example. Okay, so me personally, I like to take photos of my city, Cairo, at night. When I'm walking, doing errands, sometimes I see a single light bulb working and everything around it is dark. Sometimes I see a plant growing out of the ground because that happens in Egypt apparently. And I take a photo of it, especially if there's a cat sitting next to it. Or maybe I saw like a T-shirt thrown on the floor or next to a graffiti, and I take a photo of it. And then I see, okay, this is giving me a certain feel. This is making me feel a certain thing, and I take it, even though I don't use these photos most of the time. I just take them. They just make me feel something, bro. It's like, okay, you know how the back rooms make people feel something? People have these backrooms photos and videos. You don't have to understand. So people like that, some people, isolation, urbanism, being lonely in the modern world, stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. See, Martha's got it. All right. If you need help, just tell me. Again, it's not a competition. You're fully allowed to express that you don't know what I'm saying. I'll try to simplify it as much as possible. It's not. This is about you guys, not about me. Okay. Two cats talking in their language. Okay. Feeling curious. Okay, that's good. We started. Ibn Tawfiq started. All right. Let's see what everybody else has to say. Again, no wrong answers. Just tell me what you have. You don't have to take your own photos, Anna. You don't have to take your own photos. Again, I said, if you have an app, Pinterest, you just collect stuff, you save stuff to your boards. These things are of significant meaning to you, whether it's aesthetic or thematic. You can just share those. You don't have to take these things yourself. You don't have to share the photo palm if it's too personal, but you can go ahead if you want to. You don't have to make the thing you're referencing. White dress because it looked mostly attractive. Random joke I could relate to. Random sample poster about a new book. Never used because I was supposed to make posters in another lang, but uh, the design looked good. Okay. Yeah, bro, Musfi Minka's doing it hard, bro. Nice. Musfi's doing it right, bro. Good stuff. Guys, see what Musfi did here, bro. All right. Okay. Pinterest, taking a picture of a tree with sunlight falling on it in close-up view because I like seeing insects, birds, and trees react to the external atmosphere, and looking at the way they live their lives and how they interact with each other is very pleasing to me. Bro, we are cooking. We are cooking right now. Oh my god, bro! No wonder everything's hot today, bro. We are cooking. The kitchen is hot, bro. Keep going, guys. Just keep going. This is nice. This is real nice, bro. You're surprised. You guys are surprising me. I did not expect this level of analysis. Honestly, dude. Oh my god, this is really good, mashallah. Bro, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Just let them cook, bro. Oh. Interesting story. Did you know that I was actually inspired to make make this whole workshop because I have a little habit of mine that when I wake up, I have like a window next to my bed. It's really cinematic, and I wake up, and early in the morning there is always these bunch of birds like crows and pigeons, and I love pigeons. Not only that they taste great, but they also are just like very friendly birds. And every day I wake up and I see pigeons on my window. I like to imitate the sound of the pigeons. Yes, I'm a fully grown 22-year-old man, and I make pigeon sounds to pigeons when I wake up. I just go. I can do it better, but it needs a little bit of warming up. But I love to. I've been doing this for 6 months, bruh. I've been doing this for 6 months, and and I was like, why am I enjoying this much? Okay, Ibn Tawfiq, pictures and videos for very small insects living their life. I'm trying to understand what our samples creatures, what we easily kill, and if they actually have soul things they do at specific times, etc. Uh, uh, trying my best. People having an aggressive argument over a useless topic. Inner thoughts. Why can't we unite life in peace and brotherhood? Bro, we are touching on some deep stuff, bro. See, Ibn Tawfiq is touching on something really nice with the small insects. Like that, there was a reason why Allah and Islam prohibited us from, squishing ants or killing them, unless obviously the ant is like a fire ant that's eating wood, or that its sting is actually painful or hurtful to you. But in general, ants aren't supposed to be touched or killed in Islam. So there's a reason why that's it. That is not just because it was mentioned in the Quran. There's always a deeper reason with Islam. But yeah, as I was saying, I like to make pigeon sounds to the pigeons on the window. Basically, I'm talking to them. I don't know if I'm making a mate call and I'm catfishing the other pigeons, or they're just think that I'm a really weird looking pigeon. But either way, that brought me joy every day I wake up, bro. That is one of the things that made me happy. And that's why I said, why not make a session about knowing what makes us happy as creatives? Yes, my family sometimes thinks I'm mentally insane, but it is my life, bro. I mean, I could be mentally insane. Who knows? I don't have the enough self awareness to realize that yet. But yeah, that is my story. That is how this session came to be. Pigeons. All right, time's up. If you have answers, please write them down as well. Write them down. No problems. Mu'taz. And oh my god, bro. Chill.
a mixture of rice and beans on a frying pan. It looks tasty, and I enjoy it because my mom makes it for me as a night snack. See what he's doing right there? He's doing the Dr. Seuss model, bruh. He's doing the Dr. Seuss. Snail on lettuce, a genuinely fascinating animal with the way it moves. It looks beautiful. The way it was moving on the lettuce we found. Okay, that's cool. No, most people think of snails as disgusting. The French love it so much, which checks out. But yeah, a cat looking at the sun or a car on a car on a car. The cat has no reason to look at the sun, but it posed itself perfectly for this. I wonder why the Egyptians have a deity called Bastet, which is basically a cat. Hold on. Did the Egyptians make the first furries? Maybe. I don't know, bro. I just had an epiphany. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. My saved Pinterest board, Reels, of L meaning for later use on videos. Okay, a dark gray, but outside it, flowers blooming. Is it because life is more beautiful than death, or because of the good deeds that one is great? See, Anna is reflecting her own religion, Islam, on her own creative work. She doesn't separate her religion from her identity. She merges them both into one. A window is a two-way mirror. You can look in and you can look out. The ones inside want to be outside. The ones outside wants to be inside. Oh man, time's up. First two photos of buildings. I love the personalized art style that reflects their purpose. Third photo of self-service dog wash. Unusual sight I've never seen before. Made me curious. It could be curiosity. It could be passion. It could be empathy. It could something that just makes you reflect. Honestly, Anna, that's a good thing. I wish I could do the same, honestly, bro. Video about simple recipes and cracking an egg, making baked goods, grounding oneself to putting in effort to enjoy small things in life, being grateful for the unsatisfied, feeling satisfied, remembering the fortune doing for the. This is really good, Amira. This is really good, bro. We are cooking right now. We are cooking so hard, bro. Oh, I'm sorry, Meme. Unfortunately, the time for that exercise ran out. But in general, I will tell you real quick. If you can look at the screen, it's camera roll or save posts, three things that you weren't trying to collect but did anyway. Type one word or phrase for each in the chat when you're ready. But you missed out. Sorry. Videos of me a few years ago. It makes me confused how he liked a specific food for a specific game, a movie, or people he liked and friends. See, you're reflecting on who you were as a person before. You're reflecting on the past from the lens of the modern context, doing that same method to express ourselves in our art, with surroundings and our experiences. Yes, and yes, we're gonna get to that. Just bear with me. On to the next exercise, and let's make this one real quick. Okay, write one sentence. I always blank, or I tend to blank. For instance, I always contrast one loud color against a lot of white space. Or I tend to use most of the space in design and fill it with graphics. You can be a maximalist, you can be minimalist, you can be anti-design. So just write one sentence that says that. Nothing else. No more fluff. Just write these sentences. Quick, short, and snappy. You've already done the difficult work and figuring out what makes you aesthetically pleased. So use these and signify them in simple words and simple sentences. Go, 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 go. Meme, what's your name? Munira. Munira, this is your chance, bro. Get in on the action. Come on. Something similar or anything that is are very attached to graphic design. Do I have to do something similar or anything? Not necessarily, Montez. Again, this is creative. This is the creative human part. We don't have to make everything about design. I struggle with color combinations. Jenna helps me with those, and I have seen improvements. Okay, I tend to not draw eyebrows because I think they look bad. This is a new one, bro. I'm saving this one. I'm saving this one, bro. I tend to not draw eyebrows. That is new. I like that a lot, actually. You think that eyebrows look bad? Is it because of your own experiences? I'm not trying to put shade on you. I'm not trying to shame you for your eyebrows. I'm just saying, is it because of personal experience, or because you've seen people with bad eyebrows? Is it because some people don't have enough
hair under brows? Like, is it because of a reason or is this a tick for you? I always try to imagine, make up specific story with whatever I try to create. Well, okay, that's good. I tend to forget many small but important things behind in places I leave. I tend to try my best to recreate exactly what I imagine in my hand. Perfectionism, which in then hurts the creative process. I've been there, palm tree. I've been there, bro. Saw people with weird eyebrows not being treated that good. Oh, okay. I feel you, palm tree. I feel you, bro. I always miss your class. Oh my god, bruh. You know what? Session's over. This guy has the best. This guy's the best answer on all of them, bro. I always miss your class. Uh, oh my god, bro. I tend to procrastinate creating pieces I want to make because I overthink the outcome and perception of it. Yes, Mira, I've been there, bro. Being wanting to make the best perfect hit right away. But you see, there is a phrase that I heard a while back. It says, "Make it exist first. You can always make it perfect later." That's what they always say. Just make it perfect, and don't make it perfect first. Just make it exist. I tend to compare myself a lot with the work of others. I tend to compare myself. Oh yeah, wanting to be better, wanting to improve yourself. Because see, comparing yourself with your peers and the people in the market, and it became so much harder because now we have been connected more than ever. But yet, the highest levels of depression, loneliness, and isolation are the highest. One of the main reasons for that is comparison. Comparison can be good and bad for anything. Work, your life, relationships. If you ever get married, comparing yourself, comparing your spouse, comparing your dog, if you or a pet, comparing your car to someone else's car, comparing your kid to someone else's kid. Comparing in general can be good and bad. You can only use comparison. That's what I only mostly think. That's what I think in understanding your position relative to other people. But the only person you need to be comparing yourself to is yourself. For instance, in the match, I tend to overanalyze and deeply think of the consequences of my words and actions. Yes, that's also good. That's also good. Now, I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I'm just saying that's a good interpretation of it. You're finding yourself and seeing the bad things within you, so you can figure them out and fix them. Martez, write as much answers as you want, bro, but the time's up for this one. So we're gonna have to move on. But I really like your answers. I love your answers, guys. You've been way more introspective than I imagined, bro. Honestly. Mira's typing something real big. I'm gonna continue, Mira, and I'm gonna read your response. Oh, someone else being better isn't changing the position where you're at. It doesn't change your position. It doesn't change your position, but it definitely tells you where you are. And keep in mind, for instance, Yamal, the guy that the youngest player in the Spanish football team, right? That beat Argentina last night. Yes, Yamal. His actual name is Jamal, but they changed it because it sounds easier to pronounce. Yes, Yamal is basically younger than me. He's Gen Z. And I was like, this guy is younger than me. I'm 22. He's 18, bro. He's 19. And he beat the greatest man to ever play the sport. Whether you like Messi or not, he's the GOAT. You got to understand that. It's either Messi or Cristiano. It's not the time for the debate. But he beat the biggest guy in the sport and his team and won the World Cup and only 19, bro. And I was like, why am I not doing this? But then I realized, Yusuf, you are not Yamal, and Yamal is not you. You're a creative professional. Yamal is a football player. Your fields are entirely different. He was trained ever since he was a child. They have programs in Spain to bring up football players. Yes, he was trained ever since he was a little boy. He didn't do this when he was in high school. He started this as a 6 and 7 year old. Never feel short of him because he held it high, but he was in a track that would have him do that at such a young age. And that's what Messi went through a similar program, and that's why he's so big today. You see what I'm saying here? You can't do that. You can't compare yourself. Different lives, different journeys, different personalities. He is in a field where people in their younger years peak and then they slowly degrade until they retire and become either millionaires with investments or just, become trainers themselves, like a Rocky situation, basically. So you see what I mean? So again, let's get back to work. Let's get back to work. Stefan Sagmeister. This guy is one of the greatest designers in history, in modern history. I mentioned his name earlier, if you remember. The Zagmeister, this man is an insane guy. He was an Austrian designer, and he is one of the finest designers ever, period. He's insanely good at this. He started the Zagmeister and Walsh studio that made the biggest branding projects for Rolling Stones, HBO, Adobe, Levi's, BMW, Red Bull, just to name a few. Just to name a few, bro. And he wrote a book called The Things I Have Learned. This guy is old now, by the way. He's like really old. He's like unk level old. And one of the quotes that I always live by, what he said is, trying to look good limits my life. Trying to look good limits my life. This guy has made a lot of really weird, a lot of graphic posters for bigger brands and museums and the IGA, or the American Design Institution. This guy made a lot of weird posters, a lot of stuff that involved skin and markers and colors and blood and etc. This guy is really weird. Okay, and that's why I don't like him as a person, but I really like his work and the branding work. And he even won a Grammy, bro. He won a Grammy for a album cover designs for Talking Heads. So he's pretty big. So remember what we were talking about when it comes to imposter syndrome, or feeling being judged, or feeling that you're not good enough. I believe, I don't remember if it was Mira that said that. Mira was overthinking about outcome and perception. I don't know if Mira said that, but I think she was. Mira, this is for you, bro. Trying to look good will limit your life. You can't make your first work or first edition of something the best. It can never happen. You're not like a true professional with 20, 30 years of experience like most of these guys are. You can't do that. You'll never do that from the start. That requires a lifetime of dedication and learning. You should never judge yourself when you're a young startup. You can never do that, because design is all about not only creative and technical capabilities, but also about being a mature person. As you get older in the field, and I recognize that I'm not as mature as I should be to be a true professional with hundreds of thousands of dollars levels of worth of projects with big companies, until I've grown older with the field and learned more and experienced more, ate more, drank more things, met new people, tried new cultures, seen new movies and shows and things, because it's all about your palette becoming more mature, becoming more expansive. And as you create more work that isn't perfect, that isn't the best, that isn't complete, you are maturing your palette, you're maturing your creative perception until you're capable of delivering something you will be proud of in the end. So you can never make your first work or second work or third work the perfect work, because it can never be perfect on the start. You can always make it perfect later. For example, recently I have been getting into vixelology, or the science of designing and studying flags. Now you might be saying, Yusuf, why are you designing flags, my boy? Why are you designing flags? You are a graphic designer working with brands and companies. If there's a nation that wants a flag, it probably has people already in-house making these flags for them. Why are you making flags? I said, I just want to see what they think. I just want to see what it's like. I want to try it out. I've never done flags before, so why not try it? And then I realized I want to make a story. I want to make work. I talked about me making creative writing before, right? I started making short stories. I started making world building projects. I started making fictional worlds and universes with actual politics, with wars and coups d'etats and revolutions and cultures and history. I started making all of these things, my boy. I said, okay, I like the Cold War. In like, if it's not real, but I like the Cold War, like from the 60s, the 70s, and 80s, because as much tragedy happened in that time, it represented a simpler time in human history. You knew which side you're on right away. You knew what you believe and what you don't believe. You knew these guys are bad, I'm the good person. Or you could say, well, these are completely different solutions to the same puzzle of survival in the modern world. The Soviets and the Americans wanted to travel to space to see who was better, wanted to see who was more advanced. The Soviets sent a young man who was just the son of two peasants, a guy that worked in bricklayering, and a woman that worked in dairy work, just making cheese and milk, etc. These were commoners, poor people from a small village, and they took this young man who studied aeronautics. He started to become an astronaut, and they very much chose this guy specifically for two things. Not aside from his technical ability, they had a whole squad, a whole selection batch of astronauts who were going to send to space for the first time ever. And they chose this guy, Yuri Gagarin. This guy is an absolute legend. He was the whole batch was narrowed down to two people, and they chose him because of his background, because they understood that this young man symbolized the dream of the common worker. He was the son of two poor peasants. He was not son of a royalty. He was not the son of an oligarch. He represented the Soviet dream. And they took him in, put him in the satellite, and shot him into space. And he was the first man ever to go to outer space. And he saw Earth in the orbit. And he landed. You know where he landed? He landed with a parachute in a small farm. And a little girl and her grandmother were the first people that saw him when he got back home. And they thought he was an alien or like some form of beast because he wore like a very orange space suit. And then he took off his helmet and he started talking Russian to them. And he said, wait, I'm with you. I need a telephone to Moscow. And they called him. And in the place that he landed, in that farm, they made a giant statue to signify this victory. And they say even that his smile, you can look him up, the smile that he made when he went around the world making interviews with the big people, presidents, kings and queens across the world, over 25 tours across the world to meet with people. Because even though most of these countries detested communism, they understood that this man broke the barrier between man and earth and the outer and whatever is beyond. So I said to myself, I need to make a story inspired by that era. And then I said, okay, let's make flags. I said, okay. I went to websites like Flickr, like Pinterest, like Pixels, and I started looking at old illustrations. And I said, oh, I went in on Matchbox, these old vintage Matchbox, public domain photos. And I said, I can take this illustration and this illustration, bend them together and make a flag. The emblem on the flag on the left was taken from matchboxes. And I made a flag that symbolizes defeating evil and individualism and liberty and all that stuff. And then I said, okay, what are the main pillars of communism? Industrialization, unity, the worker, etc. Right? And then I started making names for them. The Republic of Prussia and the JCSG, or the Great Coalition of Socialist Guilds. And then I said, okay, I play D&D, I like D&D. Why not make this universe a fantasy world where fantasy races and species walk alongside each other in a normal world in a Cold War era, but with no magic, just elves and orcs and goblins and humans, just and etc. 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 living in the same world. I gave them different names. That each species, I gave them different names, so the Wizards of the Coast don't send me a lawsuit. And then I said, okay, let's make a new universe. Maybe Mothas, maybe. And then I said, okay, let's make more flags. The Cold War is all about proxy wars, smaller nations being supported by the two superpowers. I said, okay, let's make smaller flags. And then I was inspired by different parts of the world, Latin America, South Africa, North Africa. And I started making flags for them. And then I said, okay, let's make more flags. And this time they had more connections, more democratic relations. And that's what I did. Wars, so like maybe we have wars, maybe you have coup d'etats. We have the flags of the coup d'etats happening in these nations, which then influence the design of the flags later on. And I said, okay, let's make it more nationwide. Let's see if these countries have any history with each other. Let's see if a certain nation is keeping the peace in the region. And then I said, okay, let's diverse even more. Let's make even more countries with more flags. Let's have the states in these countries have their own small flags, like each state, like the states of the United States of America. They have each state has flags in them. I started making flags for these small states, and then these states came out and made their own countries, and then these states' flags turned into their country flags. So I wasn't prepared, and then I said, okay, Yusuf, you know what? I'm let's push this a little bit further. You know how most flags don't actually start the way they are now? They usually start in a simpler design, or maybe a less professional artwork before they become more minimalized, or they become more clean with color and official hex codes. What if you make a design, like designs, early designs for the flags you were talking about? And that's exactly what I did. I made histories for the flags of each major superpower. And each of these have a certain time and history of these countries. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this right. I wasn't sure if I'm going to do this perfect, but I just wanted to make them anyway. Why? Because I was inspired. I was just so excited to try this new thing out because I wanted to make a world inspired by the Cold War, because I really liked how the politics went, how people defined each other, and even when that single smile by the astronaut that the Soviets sent out that melted the Cold War, the people that realized, wait a minute, even though we are opposing sides, we're still humans. But then I said, what if these humans were different species of their own? Orcs, elves, dark elves, hobgoblins, normal goblins, right? So I said, what if there were even more races? If humans had this much war over identity, economy, and God, what if they had even more races and were different than each other? Right? And that's when it hit me. I can make more stuff. I can try out new things. Who's going to hurt me if I do that? I just want to try things out. And then I started writing short stories. Yes, all of these covers I designed. Originally I didn't like cover design. I mostly just make logos and make color palettes. I said, why not make posters and book designs? I can study those. And I started making stories and like a short books. I wanted to make new stuff, spreading joy, about understanding isolation and happiness to other people. Christmas cake about aging and isolation. A falcon about the tragedy of war and the loop of death and sorrow that people will go through, and that how humanity, no matter how many times we go through atrocities, we will still go back to the same point of conflict over ideology, over money, over war, over just simply because carnage is our normal disposition, perhaps. And then I made a manga. Yes, this is a cover. This the cover that I made because it was the anniversary of the manga that I started with my friends. A manga which is basically a Japanese comic book, and but it's in English. Just don't tell the Japanese I did this. And I made 74 pages. I was the writer. I was the character designer and the storyboard artist. I had friends from Mexico, from America, from Denmark. We worked together. We don't speak the same language. Our mother tongue isn't the same, but we just wanted to make new stuff. We just wanted to try out what would happen if we do these things. The writer, the Danish writer who helped me formulate the lore of the manga, was never wrote comics before. He only wrote novels. And I said, why not? Let's try it out. And he said, okay, sure. He wasn't afraid of making things bad. He wasn't afraid of looking bad. He wasn't afraid. We participated with this in a manga competition. Unfortunately, we didn't win, but we ended up getting 11.8 thousand reads total on both Art Street and the Manga Plus Creators thing, which was it's a website by Shueisha that owns Shonen Jump. You know, Naruto, One Piece, all these. They own this website where you can publish your own work. So see what I'm talking here? This is what happens when you apply just simply understanding who you are as a person. And keep in mind, this manga, Deadly Dara Hunter Zero, this cover was deeply inspired by Japanese movies in the 60s and 70s. This graphic design style, the texture on it, the colors, the visuals, these were directly inspired by Japanese cinema in the 70s. Now, this is the new cover that I made celebrating the anniversary, which was a little while back. When you look at the manga on the website, it's going to have the old cover, which was drawn by hand. This one is just like photo. I just did some photo editing and stuff, but it basically translates the same thing into a more formatted, more professional cover. It feels more like a movie, less like a cover for a comic book. So yeah, this is what happens when you want to be creative. And right now, I'm working on a new project. Like, pray for me that I actually do this. It's a horror story in the same universe as the manga. And keep in mind, the flags that you guys saw, these were in the same universe as the manga. This manga was the starting point for the Cold War idea. See what happens when I just want to make things. See what happens when you just want to make stuff. It never hurts to try things out. I'm telling you all this not to show you how amazing I am. I'm just telling you that when you try to do things different, when you try out new things, and keep in mind, you can make anything. You can do anything as long as it doesn't anger God. For instance, the manga that you guys saw, if you go up and read it online, no, like the faces of the characters don't appear, or they have like incomplete looks. Either they wear big goggles or have a hoodie over them, right? The main character, Dara, is hooded most of the time. You can only see either his eyes on a close-up panel or his mouth. Why? Because Islam prohibits drawing living things. So I said, okay, there's a caveat here. I can draw living things, but with incomplete looks. So most of the characters either wear masks or just have their most of their looks hidden by apparel that they have on their face. Like for instance, the goons or not the antagonists and the henchmen that Dara fights, they have masks on. Like they're basically the generic bad guys. The soldiers that have masks on, they all look the same. The Mexican artist Maria, she said, "I want to give them expressions, Yusuf. They don't look alive to me." When I gave her the reference for the characters, she said, "Okay." She said, "How about we give them expressions like the thin line in the ski mask that hides their face that you can see through?" She said, "What if I had these? What if I had these lines move like eyes and eyebrows?" And I told her, "By all means, go ahead." And every person that ever read this manga and talked to me about it, they said, I really love that the masked guys, the eye lines in the masks move like eyebrows because they give so much emotion and character that you would be able to do otherwise without facial expressions. Why? Because I said to her, please try it. Because I said, what could happen? She's a genius. She's amazing. She's in art school, actually, like me. And Maria is an absolute creative powerhouse. She's amazing. And I told her, by all means, go ahead. I believe in you. I believe in this. This is our vision. It's about me as much as it's about you. And she did it, and it's so good. Like I urge you to read the manga just to look at the henchman that Dora beats up. Because that's a genius save. So yeah, further reading for further learning. If you guys want to learn more about the stuff after this session, I would highly suggest you look at Still Like an Artist, the one I told you guys about before. Please get the book digital or physical. And if you can get the audiobook, it will enforce your experience with it so much better. And The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. This book influenced this entire session more than you guys think. It just has a lot of words in it, so I didn't want to include many references, but it's a really good book. For TED Talks, if you're a more of a visual listener guy and you want to put it in the background, you can go for Do Schools Kill Creativity and The Power of Time Off. Yes, and the guy on the right is Sagmeister, Steven Sagmeister, the same guy that I taught you guys about. The Power of Time Off, because this guy, he has a weird ritual. Every 7 years, he shuts down his studio and goes on a 1-year sabbatical where he doesn't accept any creative projects from anybody. And this guy is one of the biggest names in the business right now. He can just name any number, and his clients will give him that number because they know that he's the Sagmeister. He's that good. And he said, okay, you know what? If normally we just accept any work at all, even if it doesn't align with our faith, this guy just outright refuses work. He refuses work for a full year and just goes and makes stuff because he wants to feel happy, because he wants to feel creative. Why? Because not just because he's rich and a little bit weird, but because he understands that being creative and being truly better at the field than anybody else is recognizing your humanity, is recognizing that if you want to be creative, you have to be human. You have to be in touch with your humanity. Right? So that's how he does it. It's a bit weird, but it definitely supports his business. And with that, thank you so much for attending and listening to me yapping endlessly. This has been real fun, more fun than I expected, honestly. You guys outdid yourselves. I did not expect this level of attention and cooperation with you guys. I'm very happy for this session today. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you, Amir. Now, there's this message that I want to give after this, so I'll give you 10 seconds if you want to leave. This is a really short message, but if you want to leave, you're free to leave. If you want to stay, I really appreciate it. But yeah, if you want to leave right now, you have the permission. You can stop recording right now if you want, whoever is recording. Yes, it's a one-time session, yes. If you want to leave, that's fine. But if you want to stay and listen to the message that I have, I will really appreciate it. Yeah. Whoever is recording, please make sure to upload it on. There's this website that's like really you can upload really big files on it. It's not Drive. There's someone else. It's like Mega. I think it's Mega. Yeah, Mega. Look on Mega and upload the video if you can. I will really appreciate it. And when you do, please post the link in the comments.